Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to discuss conjoint analysis. This is a time-tested marketing tool for new product designs, and it has been used perhaps thousands of times in reality to design new products. As we proceed to the last topic of the semester, I'm sure you all have gone through a non-conventional marketing course. And in particular, I hope the analytics tools that you have learned in this course will be useful for you, for your career, and for anything you take on in the future. I wish you a great break and good luck in the exam. Enjoy. Hello everyone. In this video, we discuss conjoint analysis. This is a time-tested analytics tool for product design. This tool has been widely used in practice, not only in marketing, but also in other areas such as medical research. The motive for conjoint analysis starts from a simple question: how much do you like a product? So here I have three examples: a smartphone, a hotel, and toothpaste. So for all these products, there's one thing in common, that each one of these products has many features that you can design. A smartphone can have different storage, different colors, different camera combinations, and different price points. A hotel can have different locations, different amenities, and of course different price points. And a toothpaste can have different functions, such as tartar control, anti-cavity, whitening, color, texture. So for each one of these products, there are many features that can influence consumer choices. So the question is, can we ask consumers what they like in each one of these products? What kind of features do they care about, and how much they care about these features? Can we do that? The problem is consumers often have a somewhat fuzzy preference structure in their mind. And the process of verbalizing their preference makes it even more difficult. At the end of the day, consumers are often not entirely sure about their preference. So asking them directly about how much they like each one of these features tend to give you less reliable results. And of course, there are scenarios where consumers just cannot or will not tell you their true preferences. And in particular, if you ask consumers how much they care about price, you may get two types of answers. So if this question is asked in a social context, then nobody wants to appear as cheap. So consumers would tell you something that makes price seem far less important than it's going to be in reality. And on the other hand, if consumers think you're trying to figure out how much they are willing to pay for a product, they would tell you something that greatly exaggerates their sensitivity to price, hoping that their response would not make you charge them a higher price. So as you can see, as customers' mentality shifts, asking them directly about this kind of things very likely will give you inferior answers. And if the information is not of high quality, they are not going to be very useful in guiding your marketing activities. And so fundamentally, the motivation for conjoint analysis is to figure out consumers' preferences by not asking about their preferences directly. And as bad as consumers are at verbalizing their preferences, they're usually pretty good at making trade-offs and tell you what their choices are when you show them actual products. So the idea of conjoint analysis is to let consumers choose or rate products. So using what actual choices they make about the products to figure out their preference structure on the attributes or features of these products. So let me show you a more specific context. So when you go to a website, let's say you go to Apple's website to make a choice of iPhone, and here are four iPhones presented to you: iPhone 14 Pro, iPhone 14, iPhone 13, and iPhone SE. And for each one of these phones, you get a long list of the features of these phones. So I've cut off the full page here. Then, in your mind, you're going to make some kind of calculation on what you like about these products. After that, you make a choice. So this is your choice of the product. So of course, throughout this process, the part we really want to know is what's going on here in terms of how consumers are comparing these products and how they are making the final choice. So this is the part that we want to know. And this asking directly would be a futile effort. And ultimately, the million-dollar question is to figure out how consumers' minds work. Here's the process that we have. So first, we have the product or service offered to consumers, and then consumers would evaluate the product, and then they're going to make the choices. So let's assume that if we know this and this, can we figure out the outcome of consumer choices? Actually, yes, we can. On the right, I've shown you an example of smartphones described by a bunch of features. So the features are number of cameras, the processor, the color, the storage, the size, and the price. So for each one of these features, I have specified what value they take. So this is the specification of a smartphone. On the preferences of consumers, we know how important is each feature to a consumer. Let's say the importance of cameras is 5 and processor is 2, etc. And the relative value of these importance would tell us how important each feature is. Now we know the features, we know the preferences, we can actually figure out how attractiveness a product like this is to the consumer by doing some simple algebraic calculations. So here we have 5, that is the preference for cameras at the level of 3. So we have 5 times that the camera is 3, and then similarly 2, here the preference, by the processor of being A15, and then color, so the preference for color purple multiplied by the specification of color purple. And similarly, we do this to storage, size, and price. So this would give us the attractiveness of this specific smartphone. And these variables here that we talk about, cameras equals 3, what we put in this calculation are simply indicator variables. That is, when the number of cameras is 3, then this condition, camera 3, takes the value of 1. So that's basically 5 times 1 here if the camera is 3. However, if the camera, let's say the number of cameras is 2, then camera 3 is not true. So instead of taking the value of 1, this part would take the value of 0. So that basically would give us 5 times 0, which means if the number of cameras is not 3, then this preference of 5 times into would become 5 times 0, and then this would not contribute to the attractiveness of the smartphone. It only takes the value of 5 when it matches the number of cameras. So that's how we figure out consumer's choice from the product features offered and consumer's valuation or preferences on the features. So of course, in reality, we don't know these preferences, but we can ask consumers to tell us how attractiveness the smartphone is. More specifically, this is what we have. So we are trying to figure out the decision process and translate that into preference. Put this in a conjoint analysis context. This is what we do. First, we show consumers a bunch of products with their features specified. So here are the features we have described for our smartphone. And the next, we ask consumers, what do you want to choose? Which product would you like to choose? We specify the product features. We ask for consumers' choices. Then we use these two pieces of information to figure out what's going on in consumers' mind. And as we have talked about regression, So the product features, these are the x's, or these are the independent variables. And we ask consumers to tell us the dependent variable, y. Then we have talked about this on regression. If we have x's and the y, we can use a regression to figure out what's going on in consumer's mind, that is the betas. So basically, the conjoint analysis is a process to specify the x's, to ask consumers to tell us the y's, and then we use a regression to figure out the betas, that is how important these features are to the consumers. So we collect the data and run a regression. And of course, the output from a conjoint analysis is basically the preferences in the form of the regression coefficients. So we can get the regression coefficients for each one of these features: cameras, processor, color, storage, size, and price. So how this works, the fundamental assumption of conjoint analysis is consumers would consider all the attributes of a product jointly. That's actually how conjoint analysis got its name, considered jointly. And how much consumers like a product is the sum of how much they like each one of the attributes. So for example, let's say in the context of Tinder, you go to Tinder and you look at profiles and you swipe left and swipe right on these profiles. This is again a conjoint analysis context. So the why in this process is, do I swipe right? So if I swipe right, y takes the value of 1. If I swipe left, y takes the value of 0. So as you can see, when you swipe on Tinder, you give a bunch of y's. And then the x's, the inputs of your choice, is actually based on the information provided on Tinder. So it will be each person's distance, pictures, and their descriptions. So as you can see here, whether you swipe right is a function of distance, looks, descriptions, etc. How much you value distance, how much you value looks, and how much you value descriptions. When putting these together, it would tell us your choice of whether you swipe right. So of course, we have your history of swiping right. We know each profile's distance, looks, and description, and then we can use a regression to figure out your betas on each one of these features. I hope you would already have at least a conceptual idea of how conjoint analysis works. Next, let me give you a more full-fledged example. The example here is the choice of a hotel in Miami. And I have already created an interface for this example on a free platform called Conjointly. Let me show you how the data collection works. And then we will talk about the outputs. Clicking on the link here. And this is what you see. When you land on the page, you can have an instruction. It says, welcome to this study. While interested in how you choose a place to stay while vacationing in Miami, Florida, it will require less than 10 minutes of your time. We appreciate your participation. And then continue. Once you get into this, the conjoint data collection process will show you some hotel profiles. So in this case, I've specified 6 different features: the brand, the location, customer rating average, number of ratings, distribution of ratings, and the price per night. So as you can see, this is a fairly painless process, and once you collect the data, after the regression, you will have the results. So here's what the result would look like. This table gives you the hotel design estimates. So these are the results from a regression. And again, you have the attributes. So these are the attributes: the brand, location, average rating, number of ratings, rating distribution, and price. And these are the levels of the attributes that we have designed. So for each attribute, you have different specifications. And you can have at least 2 levels and as many levels as you want. So in this specific design, we have used 3 levels on each one of these attributes. And the regression result, it will give us the coefficients on each one of these levels. As we have talked about this before in regression, that you have 3 levels. You're coding actually 2 indicator variables for 3 levels and leaving 1 out of the coding as the baseline. So this is why the regression coefficients from such a regression, you're going to have 2 betas and 1 baseline taking the value of 0 because this value is left out as a baseline and it is not one of those indicator variables that are estimated. And as you can see here, we have 2 estimates and a 0 for each attribute. And if you have more levels, let's say if your attribute has 5 levels, then you're going to have 4 coefficients estimated plus a baseline of 0. So now we have these coefficients for all the attributes. And we can make use of these coefficients by predicting the preference score of a specific hotel. For example, let's say I have a hotel profile like this. Let's say we have a Hilton on the beachfront, average rating 3.9, number of ratings 10, rating distribution is U-shaped, and the price is 120. And since we already have these importance coefficients, we can use these values to construct the preference score of this specific hotel profile. So we have 15 plus 25 plus 2.7 plus 0 minus 1.1 minus 15, and that gives us a score of 26.6. It is important to know that this specific number, 26.6, does not carry any meaning in itself. It's only meaningful when you compare the scores relatively. If, let's say, you have another hotel profile, and that profile has a score of 20, and then 26.6 wins over 20, so the conjoint analysis result would tell you that this consumer would prefer the hotel with a score of 26.6 over the hotel with a score of 20. So the importance of these coefficient measures can be used for various purposes. So first, how much is an attribute worth? So I have taken out the coefficients for price. We have 3 price levels, 80, 120, and 160 in the conjoint analysis. And the importance coefficient estimates are 0, minus 15, and minus 20. Of course, the higher the price, the worse it is. It makes sense. When we look at the highest price and the lowest price, the importance scores are minus 20 versus 0. So the importance range between these two dollar values is between 20 and 0. So that range is 20. And the price difference between minus 20 and 0 is 160 and 80. So 160 minus 80 covers a price difference of 80. So which means a 20-point difference in the coefficient represents $80 in difference in terms of price. So $80 are worth 20 units of importance points. And then we can calculate 1 unit of importance is worth 80 divided by 20. That's $4 per unit. Then we can use this $4 per unit number to gauge how valuable an attribute level is. Here the question is, how much more valuable is a beachfront property compared to a city center property? And remember, 1 unit of importance is worth $4. So now here's the other part we have from the conjoint regression results, that for the 3 different types of locations, beachfront, near the beach, and the city center, the estimated importance coefficients are 25, 20, and 0. So we want to compare beachfront versus city center, and the difference in their importance is 25 points. So we can calculate 25 points of difference times $4 per point. That's $100. So we have that you can charge this person $100 more a room per night at a beachfront than city center. Of course, the same applies to the dollar value difference between near the beach and city center, and that difference would be 20 times 4, that's $80. And the difference between beachfront and near the beach is 25 minus 20, that's 5 points, and 5 points times $4 per point, that's $20. So the difference in valuation between these two, beachfront and near the beach, is $20. So we can use that $4 per point to estimate a dollar value for all these attributes and all these levels. So our example demonstrated the difference for locations, and we can do it for brand name, we can do it for the average rating, number of ratings, or rating distribution, following the same principle. And of course, conjoint analysis results can be used for product design. So here's a question. Let's say you are considering to buy an investment property and use it for Airbnb. Now you have 3 properties that are identical in terms of their features, except for location. And you are deciding whether to buy a property on a beachfront near the beach or in the city center. From the conjoint analysis, we know a beachfront property can earn an extra $100 a day compared to a city center property. So that's the calculation we have just conducted. And then let's say you can rent the property out for 250 days a year. So a beachfront property therefore would earn an extra $100 per day times 250 days. That's $25,000 a year extra. Factor in interest rate and operating expense. This tells you how much a beachfront property may be worth to you when you make the purchase. And let's say when the interest rate is 10% and the operating expense is identical for a beachfront property versus a city center property, then that $25,000 extra a year can translate into an NPV of $153,600 for a 10-year time window. The NPV calculation is the same as what we did for a previous lecture on the customer lifetime value. So this value basically says that if this is what you are considering, if the beachfront property is only $100,000 more expensive than the city center property, then it's a good deal for you because you can earn more money back from the beachfront property than the city center property. If, however, the beachfront property is far more expensive, let's say $200,000 more expensive, then it's larger than the NPV, then that hefty price tag may not be worth it. So as you can see, such conjoint analysis results can help you decide how to design or acquire a product on a feature and a dollar value basis. In summary, a conjoint analysis is a time-tested way of extracting consumer preferences reliably. It has been applied in practice for decades and has a long tracking record of yielding useful results. And a consumer's overall preference for each option is the sum of the utility that they derive from each attribute or level and how much that attribute or level is worth to them. And it is a useful tool for new product development. Thank you, and you are at the finish line. This is the last topic of marketing analytics. Keep up the good work.